Hello and good morning. Hello and good morning. My name is Kris Thorne, and welcome back to this week's edition of Fit for Change. And I'm joined here with Fi Hills from MindNudger AI. We are here today, a bit of a treat for you. Now, last week, you might recall that we went through the 4 critical steps that were needed to build psychological safety in the workplace. Information to transformation, trainer-centered to learner-centered, a linear format to the perfect blend, and racking and stacking one-off training versus continuous and ongoing training. And we're going to unpack for you today how we put those 4 steps into practice in the design of our own mind nudging journeys for you. Because it's all about the design, really. Delivery is just one part of the equation. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to actually document for you that behind the scenes, step by step, how did we actually put this into play? Because what we really need to be thinking about is how do we move from traditional linear cognitive-based learning towards a more emotional and social type of learning. Now, why? Because really, if we don't engage people's emotions, there is no transformation. Knowledge transfer does not equal transformation. We need to embed this at an emotional level. And equally, if we don't get people in a frame of mind where everything's calmed down, their amygdala's, not looking out for threats and danger, we're not in that fight-flight mode, we won't be able to actually learn effectively. So what we're going to do for you today is help you understand how we went from the traditional approach to a more emotional and social approach. Now, we're going to be giving you heaps more information this week to follow on from this live, to really dig deep, and also to just reinforce what we're going to tell you today, because this is a rather complex journey. There's quite a few concepts to be understanding. So sign up to the MindNudger page, DM myself to get these goodies as we roll them out through the rest of the week. Now, Fi is going to deep dive for you into the building blocks of how we went about this transformation.
It's over to me.
Sorry.
Monday. Hey guys, we've really got to warm up.
Monday, sorry.
I was talking to Chris before getting ready. I was thinking, I'm so inarticulate, usually anyway, but certainly on a Monday morning. So do forgive us. Now, this is going to be an exciting session because we were talking about how to get to the how. And one thing's for sure, getting to do what we've done is no mean feat. And you're going to see this as we unravel this today. And we're going to go step by step. There's certain things that you still feel like, oh, can I have that? And that might need its own session. Things like dissecting a mind nudge or having a look at what a mind nudge is, but we're certainly going to give you the whole how we put the journey together. So on that note, let's get on with it because I'm really mindful of time. So as Chris said, we've picked the psych safety journey to actually sort of talk about this because we followed the sort of mind nudge journey all the way through these last few lives. And I think it's good to stay with this subject. And you'll see why as we're going through it.
And if we don't have psych safety, we haven't got the foundation for continuous learning anyway, have we, Fi?
Well, no, exactly. So it's stage 1 anyway of everything, as we know in learning and change. So so that's why we started with psych safety. So what you're looking at here is a journey of psych safety that we have now concluded. It's out there. We've got an AI navigator with it. What we call an AI navigator is actually an AI concept pyramid. It's a model that helps us fuel the entire thing to individualize the journey. But that will become apparent. But what we're going to show you today is how we built the journey and how we go about building a journey. And we go about it for this way because our mission on any journey is to create an emotional and social learning environment for transformation. For ultimately, it's got to be iterative. So we're moving from program to journey, if you like. We're moving from linear program to continuous learning. So we can compound transformation and change. So learning and change, if you like, as we're going. And you can almost see with the sort of different aspects of it, how it does compound that change. So moving on to the next slide a second. So first thing we start with, I will come back to that journey because you'll need a picture speaks 1,000 words. And the first thing we start with is the framework, like any normal traditional program, you start with a framework. Now, we picked as a baseline framework for psych safety Timothy Clark's framework, which, to be honest, people said this one's better, this one's better. It's a framework. So it gives us, if you're building a house or anything, obviously we need that framework so it stands up. And his framework is, from a high level point of view, is inclusion safety, learner safety, contributor safety, and challenger safety. That should say challenger safety, just
the key thing is, of course, how do we actually achieve each one of those? And that's really where the mind nudging and the phases comes in, isn't it?
Yes. So if we start with this framework, because this is for us really important, we did actually add to this framework as we were designing, because it didn't quite meet the needs we were trying to meet. But as a baseline framework, it works. So we started with this framework, and then we have building blocks to build in to start the journey. And I'm going to take you through the building blocks and then tell you how we put the journey together, if that makes sense. So the 4 building blocks are quite simple. They are cognitive restructuring. So we've got something called aura, which is an experiential cognitive restructuring, is when we do introspection. So this is very much about the stuff in the journey that people do on their own. It's internal. So this is really mind nudging. It's the thread that runs through any journey.
And it's building that habit of reflection, because that's where the learning happens, isn't it, Fi?
Yeah, that's a good point. So ultimately, like Kris said, the goal is to reflect. And what we're giving them is a mechanism for reflecting as they're going about their day. Now, the great thing about mind nudging is it absolutely is something that you pretty much get a nudge, as you can imagine, the hints in the name. And it primes your mind as you're going about your day to get you to either reframe, think up a strategy, and it formulates your thinking. And over time, of course, that compounds and changes frames of mind and ultimately mindsets. So more about that, not so much on the details. We want to tell you how we built it today. But so we use a design structure that called observe, reflect, adapt, and we call that aura, or action. And the second thing is epic. Now, this is not a new methodology of ours. It's got plenty of legacy on it. It's got plenty of validation on it. And that epic stands for experiential, playful, iterative, collaborative, which is there in front of us to see. And that it takes care of the building block of more social approach to learning. So things like the shared thinking pods, the pop-up learning.
And the shared thinking pods, they're like a mini think tank, aren't they, across the organization?
Yeah. So if you think of to going to that, actually, now that you're on that, Kris, we've got the next section is cognitive blended learning. So the next building block is how we put those together. So how do we put together social learning interventions with mind nudging to create the continuous learning journey? And that we call that cognitive blended learning. And that includes mind nudging introspection, pop-up learning scapes, which are like experiential learning sessions, be they on site or be they virtual on Zoom or Teams. These are experiential, powerful, transformational sessions with groups. The next thing is shared thinking pods, which is what Kris said. They're like mini, how do you describe them, Kris?
Like a mini think tank or a micro think tank across your organization, where you're building that critical thinking, that creativity, that problem solving. We learn so much more through interaction with other people than we do on our own.
Yeah, and I suppose the difference in the shared thinking pods is it's not, though you're sharing experiences, thinking, creating new knowledge, it's being driven by buttons, if you like, that drive thinking. So is this a critical thought? Is this a creative thought? So it's driving that higher order thinking. So it's almost stimulating higher order thinking, so that it isn't a free for all. I just want to make a comment and then the comment is misunderstood. So it's going a bit, it does come under social learning, but it's a little bit more structured in terms of how we get that thinking in that environment. And then, of course, you can go into different little think tanks, if you like. The next part is, of course, the fuel, and that is the AI concept pyramids. In order to have a journey, once you've got your journey, though you've got a learning journey or transformational journey that you've laid out, like you would a program in learning, even in a more traditional thing, you'd have a program that goes, I do this workshop, then I do this one, and I do this one, and maybe some digital learning in between. In the sense of a journey, there needs to be an overlay of individualization, what we call individualization. And in traditional learning, that would be send them content that suits them. In this form of learning, it's transformational. So it's effectively an AI concept pyramid that is able to understand through assessment and nudging what that person understands in any given concept or any given subject or subcategory of a subject. And it can say, oh, Kris understands this, but she hasn't quite got this concept, so I'll send her a mind nudge on this one. So it's really individualizing the learning outcomes, not just the experience. And it's not sending content. Sorry, Kris.
And that, no, I was going to say, and that's quite different from traditional learning, where we think of, we're sending people content, based on their preferences, or we might send content based upon, well, we need to develop a specific skill. But the challenge we have with any skill is, how do we know what they know, if you like, about that skill? And this is what's so incredible about the concept pyramid, is that it's able via the journey, the platform, and the process to ascertain what they don't know. It's the you don't know what you don't know. And it helps to fill in the gaps, and with the correct nudges or, nano nudges that will help them to build that concept as well, which is quite exciting, really.
Very exciting. I mean, very exciting. I think the thing is here, we're explaining something and documenting how we've done this. And the thing is, there's no getting away from the fact this shift is complex. But when you understand it, it, like anything, becomes pretty simple enough, because it goes in steps. Yeah, there are a lot of component parts, that much I would say. So we just got to get our head around those. What are the component parts and how do I put them together? Be it, like I say, like a chef. A chef has their ingredients, but how do they put it together to create great journeys? We don't focus ever on programs, we focus on journeys. And I think that's the fundamental difference, is that it requires different component parts, if you like. Yeah. So step by step, on just first things first, we understand each phrase or themes and outcomes. For example, a consideration may be, what do we want our learning path to be? Now, you think about psych safety. When you think about a leader going through this psych safety, because our particular one is for leaders, you think about personal development. So what do I need as personal development as a leader before I lead other people to foster psychological safety in my workplace? There is no doubt about it, with psych safety, there is personal development involved in this particular one. In other ones, they may not be. So the consideration we've got to ask ourselves before we start designing our journey anyway is like, do I need personal development here? Or do I need professional development? Or do I need a combination of both of these approaches? In psych safety, it's a combination of both when it comes to the leader. So we mixed it up. Now, you might be asking at this point, what is a theme? So what is a mind nudging theme? The way mind nudging works is in weekly themes. And I'll actually, Kris, jump in here and explain what a theme is, and let's give an example.
So a theme is really, it's a concept that we want them to have in order to ultimately to achieve, that outcome or that. So for example, something like inclusion, there will be different concepts or frames of mind that make up how included someone does or doesn't feel. And a great example we've got here is Outcast, which is actually we're actually doing a pop-up learning scape on Outcast tomorrow, which is about, well, what would I need in order to understand the pain that people feel if they feel like they've been ostracized or they don't belong at work? What would I need to really understand or experience in order to develop empathy and the understanding so that I don't do that, so that I don't ostracize people, however intentional or unintentional. And when we break down something like that framework, we'll look at each of those phases and think, well, what would people need to know or understand in order to have inclusion safety, have learner safety, etc. And then we just keep breaking that down into the component parts to then devise the themes. And then, of course, out of the themes, we would create the individual nudges to put people in that experience to then start to build that concept, if you like, in their mind.
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly. So if we think, just to go on from there, if we took Outcast and Outcast was your week 1 theme, that would break down, like Kris said, into little concepts of which you may understand some but not others, or appreciate some or others, or have certain limiting beliefs in some or other about Outcast. But that becomes the overarching theme. And then we follow the aura process. So on a Monday, you get an observation, mind nudge. On a Wednesday, you'll get a reflection, mind nudge. And on a Friday, you start to put your actions in of what you want to change based on what you've observed and reflected. So what you can see is that each theme follows an experiential process along a continuous journey. Now, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, there's a lot involved. For the participant, they literally is 2 minutes. They get their mind nudge. Sorry, Kris, go on.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, there's a lot of thought and design that goes in behind the scenes, but for the participant, it is quite straightforward, isn't it? It's 5 to 10 minutes a day doing their nudge, 30 minutes a week, and it just compounds over time. It's not a time-hungry intervention. It's a time-friendly intervention.
Yeah, and obviously the point of mind nudging as a thread through your journey is that it's the introspection, it's the bit that primes their mind to iteratively change it step by step. And what you used, the word inch by inch, actually Kris made a fantastic thing called inch by inch, and we all use it. And all of us, when we're overwhelmed, go inch by inch, guys, inch by inch. So it's priming your mind with this concept that helps you change your frame of mind, but it does it step by step, and most of which is done at a pretty unconscious level. So you're not doing any work, meaning time or energy is not being expended in doing mind nudging, but it starts to sort of it has anchors in that allows you to sort of get triggered as you're going about your day, and you notice something, and then all of a sudden you go, Outcast. So you see, it's anchoring new messaging in the mind that on a very constructive restructuring process to help us, I suppose, have a much more healthier mind. Think of mind nudging like this as cognitive behavior therapy, but it's done where the AI is helping with the work, because what it's doing is identifying and sending you only the nudges you need. So if you don't understand a particular concept or part of the concept, it will send you the nudge to help you understand what you need. And then that raises your awareness about it. You get to decide whether you change. So nothing is driving change here. You're driving the change. What it's doing is helping you raise your self-awareness about a particular concept.
And if you think about it, that's actually really good for your people, because we are so overloaded with information, aren't we? And when we send people on a course, we hope that, the information that they're getting from that course is relevant to them, but it may or may not be. So by actually really targeting and personalizing this learning so that they're only getting the nudges that they need, if you like, in order to make that shift, you're actually creating a more brain-friendly way of learning for your people that's less it reduces that cognitive load and it reduces that stress of trying to keep up with things all the time.
Exactly. So this is one aspect of a journey. So mind nudging is the introspective aspect of a journey. Very, very essential, because if we do not raise this self-awareness, people just cannot move to the next level. So the stage of design for us was, right, how do we structure this? How do we actually structure a journey? So the journey structure, taken everything we just said, is we then map out that journey. So let me just take you quickly back to the journey to explain this properly. Right, so that's the journey. It's 12 weeks. So when you think about the framework was 4. So we've got 3 phases or 3 themes in each section equals 12. Okay, so 3 4s are 12. So you've got 3 mind nudging themes for learning safety. You've got 3 mind nudging themes for inclusion, and so on and so forth. So we're starting to now say, right, how can we structure it? What you can see in this journey, by the way, is pop-ups, shared thinking, and then the mind nudging things throughout the whole journey. So this is how we start to build a structure. So then we map out the phases. So if we've got inclusion, we need 3 themes for 12 weeks on inclusion. We need 3 themes on learner safety, contributor safety, and so forth. And then what we do is list out the themes based on the learning outcomes that we want to achieve. So for example, in inclusion, we will actually, Outcast will be in inclusion for obvious reasons, as it's all about inclusion. And then we may have something like another theme that we have called sit a while in my seat, which is a concept that allows us to exactly that, have a mind game that sits in the other person's seats and see things from their perspective. So we can see where this is going, right? Well, at least I hope we can. At least I hope we can, or we're wasting our time. So we would end up with three themes. So that's 3 weeks on inclusion, and then we would move on to learning. So we would list out in a structure, we'd list out these themes, and then we order the nudges. Because in each phase, if we had, say, sit a while in my seat before Outcast, it probably wouldn't work. But if we do it the other way around, it will work. So the order of your mind nudging is
matters.
Sorry, Kris, go on.
It matters. I mean, the order in which you introduce the concepts matter because they build upon each other.
Yeah. Well, it does in a normal. I mean, if you took a traditional learning program like leadership program, Psych safety, whatever it may be, you'd have a workshop and you'd do it in a sort of obvious order. And this is exactly the same, except we're dropping in mind nudges because that is driving cognitive restructuring. So it's even more important we get it in the right order. So what we want them to do is go through the journey in a very natural way that thinking should happen. So in Outcast, we're allowing someone to understand the pain of what it feels like to be ostracized, but in an experiential, immersive way, so that the next time they may unconsciously do it to somebody, they will know how it feels because it's done at that sort of primal level, or conscious level, if you like. And if you then, if we then do sit a while in my seat is a strategy, it's a skill. Whereas Outcast is much more of a mind frame and a mindset. So you have to be careful how this order goes. Yeah. And sorry, Kris, go on.
No, I was going to say, and just once, and just thinking time, and as you can see, we've just mapped out for you then really the sequence of events. Once we have the themes, we put things in the right order. Really, at that point, it's just a case of actually building, designing the content itself, the actual nudges, putting that into the platform, testing as you would anything, and then rolling it out to our users. So really, it's all there. It's just understanding what needs to go in and designing that journey for people. As we've been saying from the beginning, it's creating the right experience so that learning and change becomes enjoyable, easy, subconscious, and actually happens.
Excellent. So this, for example, all of these will be on separate sort of PDFs on the Mind Nudger. If you go to Mind Nudger AI on LinkedIn, it's a company page, and we're sharing out all of our resources on there. So you can get the sort of detail day by day on there. We're putting posts out and some videos. So on that note, let me just move on, because I am mindful, like you say, about the time, Kris. Creating the perfect blend. So we've seen the component parts, what it takes to shift from traditional learning to a more continuous learning on transformational development, including emotional and social learning, right? But the blend is really important. Now, if you got psych safety, we'd design it in one way, but if we had a different subject, for example, at the moment we're working on a well-being journey, which is entirely different. So the mix of the blend of how we put these together is different based on, these are the considerations, as you know, Kris, is do we need, like, to got mind nudging themes, which is really looking at our transformational introspection, like we said. Then you've got the pop-up learning scapes, which is more the sort of interventions, experiential fun learning sessions, of which we've got one. If you search again on our website, Mind Nudger AI's Outcast Tomorrow is actually a live pop-up learning scape, so you can experience it if you register, and it'll be running on Zoom, so you'll be able to experience that. And then you've got the shared thinking pods. So the question is, how do we decide how much mind nudging themes we put in, how many pop-ups do we put in, and how much do we involve them in the shared thinking pod? And there's so much involved in that. It totally depends on, one, your audience. So what are your audience? How much time have they got? What is their culture? What is it they're trying to learn? So all of these are considerations, much like you blend based on how much these considerations in a traditional learning, you're also doing that here. Because really, you could have a 12-week journey and do one pop-up a month, and that would probably be about right. So that would be 3 pop-ups sessions, maybe 60-minute pop-up learning sessions. And maybe because the shared thinking is on the go. So you've got to consider how much of it is on the go and how much of it is going to eat into their time. So time is a big factor when you're designing the journeys, because last thing you want to do is move them from traditional learning to these type of continuous learning solutions, to then find out you've overwhelmed them just the same. So we don't want to be doing that. We want to shift as much as we can in the balance between social learning and introspection without eating into their day, and if possible, only taking up an average of 30 to 60 minutes a week for any program. Over to you, Kris.
Well, and that's what we've done, is as we've gone through the journeys and we've worked with different clients and done pilot programs, we've tested and adapted, and we've adjusted the journeys and the delivery of the nudges and over what time frames, and found different blends that work for different people. So just want to close out by saying thank you, obviously, for coming along to our live, listening to what we had to say. Hopefully you found this instructional and useful and intrigued enough to want to know more. And I think you said that if we come along next week, Fi, that we might be looking at a behind the scenes look at the platform itself in terms of how do we actually deliver the nudges? How do we facilitate the shared thinking pods and so forth? Is that right?
Yes, because ultimately it's where the rubber hits the road, isn't it? So it's how do we show you how it actually works in practice? And one thing we are being asked is, how does the AI concept pyramid work to individualize the learning? So we're going to start next week on the platform with that, help you understand the AI, how it drives individualization, and then from there move into how we build on the platform an actual mind nudging journey.
Wow, I can't wait to see that. That's going to be great.
Hope so. So in the meantime, though, we are sharing, as I said, heaps of stuff every day. So please do go on to Mind Nudger AI. And thank you very much for listening, whether it's on a recording or live. So thank you. And thank you, Kris.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you. We finished on time today. Massively impressed.